Do you live on an island or even near the coast? Imagine hearing your home called a floating island of garbage. Because at Trump's latest rally, that's exactly what Puerto Rico was reduced to by his hand picked comedian. I'm John DeBona, and I'm glad you're here. This is where we cut through the noise and break down the issues happening in our country. Today, we're digging into the spectacle at Trump's Madison Square Garden rally, where one of his chosen speakers took aim at Puerto Rico with a vile joke. This isn't just a throwaway line either. It's part of a larger pattern, one that Project 2025 could make into policy. So, how does the rhetoric from Trump's rally fit into the broader goals of Project 2025, especially when we're talking about Puerto Rico? At the rally, when comedian Tony Hinchcliffe joked about Puerto Rico being a floating island of garbage, it wasn't just an offensive remark. It was a reflection of the deeply ingrained attitude towards marginalized communities. This kind of rhetoric sets a dangerous precedent, one that aligns disturbingly well with the goals outlined in Project 2025. Project 2025 is designed to reduce federal oversight and limit the government's role in assisting states and territories that are struggling. Puerto Rico, with its history of economic challenges and natural disasters, is already in a precarious position. By embracing such dismissive language, the Trump campaign is signaling that communities like Puerto Rico are not worthy of federal support. It's a dehumanizing message that suggests they should fend for themselves, further entrenching the stigma around federal assistance. Now let's connect the dots. Project 2025 aims to cut back on essential services like disaster relief through FEMA, educational funding, and healthcare resources. Imagine a scenario where a hurricane strikes again, leaving Puerto Rico vulnerable and under-resourced, all while the federal government steps back. The consequences would be catastrophic. The joke isn't just a joke. It becomes part of a larger narrative that justifies neglect and abandonment, painting Puerto Rico as undeserving in the eyes of those who hold power. When the next disaster hits, how many lives will be affected because of this perception? That's the real tragedy. And we have to ask, what is the significance of the Trump campaign's attempt to distance itself from the joke, given its alignment with Project 2025? When the Trump campaign distanced itself from Hinchcliffe's remarks, stating that this joke does not reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign, it revealed a critical strategy, trying to navigate the dangerous waters of public opinion while maintaining a base that thrives on divisive rhetoric. But this distancing doesn't erase the reality of Project 2025's objectives, which are fundamentally at odds with supporting communities like Puerto Rico. The attempt to disavow the joke is an effort to mitigate backlash, especially among moderate voters who might be turned off by such an overtly racist comment. However, it does highlight the hypocrisy within the campaign. While they seek to distance themselves from the comedian's words, the underlying sentiments reflected in those words are echoed in their policies. Project 2025's framework promotes a reduction in federal support, which aligns with the attitudes expressed at the rally. What's alarming is that such comments have the potential to become normalized, allowing policymakers to justify cuts and neglect for communities already in crisis. This isn't merely a matter of public relations, It's a glaring signal of how marginalized groups are perceived. It raises the question, if they can dismiss Puerto Rico so flippantly, what's stopping them from doing the same when it comes to policy? As we consider the implications of Project 2025, we must ask ourselves how far the normalization of this rhetoric can go before it leads to actual policy that disregards the needs of entire populations. But it doesn't end with rhetoric. It seeps into the very fabric of policy and governance. After the break, we'll delve deeper and explore how Project 2025's approach to funding cuts could devastate Puerto Rico's economy and social services.
When I ran for Congress, we flipped more Trump voters blue than any other congressional race in the country. We did this by calling out the GOP's lies and speaking truth against their million-dollar attack ads. I've now partnered with Turn Left, and we're taking the fight to the extremists like Marge the Trainwreck Green, Ted Cruz, and Josh Hawley, to name a few. And I'm asking each and every one of you all to donate $25 today to the group that is absolutely helping to send these jackaloons packing. It's time to speak truth to power and turn left.
Puerto Rico's economy is fragile and heavily reliant on federal assistance. Programs like SNAP, Medicaid, and education funding provide critical lifelines for many residents. Project 2025 proposes significant cuts to these programs, which would lead to devastating consequences for the island's economy and its people. Imagine a single mother in Puerto Rico trying to make ends meet. She relies on SNAP to put food on the table for her children. If Project 2025 cuts these funds, not only does her family face hunger, but local grocery stores, many of which already operate on thin margins, would see a decrease in sales, further jeopardizing the local economy. This isn't just about one family, it's a domino effect that ripples through the entire community, creating a cycle of poverty that's hard to break. And the same thing goes for Medicaid funding being slashed. Hospitals and clinics already struggling with limited resources would be forced to make tough choices. Fewer services, reduced staff, and longer wait times for patients could become the norm. For an island that has faced numerous health crises, including the fallout from Hurricane Maria, this isn't just a bureaucratic issue, it's a life or death situation for many. By cutting these vital services, Project 2025 effectively punishes those who are already marginalized, reinforcing the cycle of inequality. The joke at the rally, although dismissed, becomes a chilling precursor to the policies that could soon follow. A warning of what happens when those in power view vulnerable communities as expendable. So what are the broader implications of these funding cuts on Puerto Rico's recovery from natural disasters? The implications of funding cuts under Project 2025 extend far beyond economic stability. They directly threaten the very survival of communities in Puerto Rico during and after natural disasters. We've seen this play out in real time with hurricanes like Maria, which exposed critical gaps in the island's infrastructure and emergency response systems. When the federal government retreats from its role in disaster recovery, the consequences can be catastrophic. Picture this: a hurricane approaches, and residents are preparing for the worst. Without robust federal support, the response is slower, and recovery efforts are hampered. FEMA resources dwindle, leaving local governments and organizations scrambling to fill the gaps. In a place like Puerto Rico, where infrastructure is often underfunded and outdated, the lack of federal aid can lead to prolonged suffering. Furthermore, without federal oversight, private entities might swoop in to capitalize on the chaos. This could lead to privatization of essential services where profit motives override the needs of the community. Families might face rising costs for basic services like healthcare and utilities, further exacerbating their vulnerabilities. We've discussed the immediate threats to Puerto Rico's economy and disaster response, but there's another dimension to Project 2025 that's just as urgent. Let's talk about how the project's environmental policies would open the door to unchecked exploitation of Puerto Rico's natural resources. That after the break.
Today, we have an amazing show for you.
Join myself, special guests, and celebrities.
What's going on, Ice-T? Andrew Yang.
Somebody else was hopping on.
Oh, hold on.
What's going on, battle?
As we roast GQP jackaloons.
He may not be a real businessman, but he is one hell of a con artist. That's what it is. That's what they got indicted for. Treason and sedition.
And address the headlines of the day.
They must be held accountable.
Live streaming every night.
I got more time in a friggin' port in a friggin' combat zone than you've probably got in the military.
This is Ojeda Live.
So, how would Project 2025's approach to environmental deregulation impact Puerto Rico's natural resources and public health? Project 2025's environmental deregulation push is alarming for Puerto Rico, a place whose natural resources and ecosystems are not just beautiful, but vital for resilience against natural disasters. Puerto Rico's coastlines, coral reefs, and wetlands are natural barriers that help protect the island from hurricanes and severe weather. Without strict environmental protections, corporations could exploit these resources without accountability, polluting the land and waters with harmful waste, chemicals, and runoff. Imagine this: factories dumping untreated waste into Puerto Rico's coastal waters, polluting the oceans and harming marine life. This isn't just an environmental issue, it's a public health crisis waiting to happen. Puerto Rican communities, especially low-income ones, rely on clean water and land. And contamination of these resources due to unchecked industrial activity could lead to spikes in diseases, respiratory issues, and even food shortages if farmlands become too polluted for safe cultivation. But it doesn't stop there. With less federal oversight, there's a high risk that ecosystems critical to Puerto Rico's tourism industry could be severely damaged, impacting the economy further. Tourism accounts for a significant portion of the island's revenue and depends on Puerto Rico's natural beauty. Losing that lifeline because of short-sighted deregulation policies would be disastrous for the economy and for the well-being of Puerto Rico's people. Project 2025 seems poised to dismantle federal oversight across various sectors. What would it mean for everyday Americans if this plan succeeded in stripping down protections around labor rights, community welfare, and environmental safeguards? If Project 2025 gets its way, we're looking at a future where the power to protect workers, the environment, and community well-being is handed over to state governments with minimal accountability or oversight. Right now, federal labor standards ensure things like minimum wage, overtime pay, and protections against unsafe work conditions. Without these, states could lower or completely eliminate these standards to attract businesses, leaving workers, especially those in low-income and high-risk jobs, vulnerable and underpaid. Then there's the welfare of our communities. Think about environmental protections that regulate clean air and water. Project 2025 could dismantle the EPA as we know it, pushing those responsibilities onto states, many of which lack the funding or political will to enforce strong standards. We could see increased pollution in low-income areas and communities of color, which have historically been hit hardest by environmental neglect. It's the same story when it comes to community welfare and disaster response. Stripping down FEMA and cutting resources for public health agencies means that in the face of natural disasters, health crises, or public safety threats, states could be left scrambling to manage on their own. For everyday Americans, it means fewer resources, slower responses, and weaker protections. This isn't just cutting red tape, it's pulling the rug out from under millions of people. Project 2025's plan may be sold as state empowerment, but we see it for what it is, a calculated dismantling of protections that our communities depend on. And there you have it, folks. This is what's really at stake under Project 2025. This isn't just a policy or a plan. It's a wholesale dismantling of the protections and systems that keep so many of us safe. And there you have it, folks. This is what's really at stake under Project 2025. This isn't just a policy or a plan. It's a wholesale dismantling of the protections and systems that keep so many of us safe and secure. Think about what this means for working Americans and those who rely on Social Security, for those in the service industry, for veterans, and for all who look to this country for the promise of fairness and opportunity. If this extremist blueprint gets in the way, these pillars will crumble. But we don't have to sit on the sidelines. We can make a difference right here, right now. From education to worker protections, to the services that support our communities. Project 2025 is a sweeping agenda aimed at reshaping America into something unrecognizable. It's a plan that puts the needs of the powerful over the people, stripping away essential safeguards, targeting environmental protections, and gutting critical government functions that countless Americans rely on. We've broken down how Project 2025 is nothing less than an assault on our public schools, our healthcare, and even disaster relief services. All of this is disguised under reform, but we see it for what it is: a concentrated power grab that leaves the most vulnerable out in the cold, while those at the top rake in more. Let's remember, this isn't about party lines. This is about preserving the values that we all share, the ones that say every American deserves a fair shot, a secure future, and an environment that's safe and protected. Turning away from this is not an option. Staying informed, staying together, and fighting back are how we resist and protect what's truly ours. So if you want to make a difference, head over to turnleftpac.org. This is where you can stay updated, take action, and support initiatives pushing back against this radical agenda. Check out the resources, sign up for email updates, and dive into the Resist Project 2025 Reel series. It's all there to keep you informed and ready to take a stand. Let's ensure that Donald Trump's vision of America doesn't come to pass. TurnLeftPac.org is where you can get involved and keep this movement strong. Stay tuned next for Ojeda Live, where we're breaking down even more of the real stories, cutting through the spin and bringing you the facts. You won't want to miss it. See you there.